Alright, here we are, Wednesday, the 14th of July, 2021. Pretty awesome learning lesson today on some of my short setups. Tumultuous P&L, not gonna lie, but great step in my trading career and advancement that I think is gonna propel me pretty far in my career, and a step I needed to take, and I'll get in here in a few minutes. But I want to pull up SPY here. First noticed SPY within the first minute, 780,000 shares within the first minute. We have not seen down day, of course, or up day, even green day, 0.15% up from the previous day close. On the daily, we have not had over 700,000 volume into the first minute since we had a million share first minute day on this 8th here when we gapped down pretty hard. Another million share day here on the 18th when it gapped down hard, and the only other time there's a 700 first minute volume on the 1st of July, so this big red day. Seeing here, and then the 11th of May. So this big gap down day as well, also had over a million in that first minute. So I don't really know what that means. We haven't had, it's just kind of been, so the last week, taking out that million share, that million minute first on the 8th, we've had 400,000, 400,000, 600,000, 400,000, 500,000, 400,000, 500,000, 500,000, 300,000 yesterday, and today 780,000 for seemingly a green 0.15% update. No real trade idea or thesis or reasoning behind it, but just curious to point that out. Now to the trades. JZXN is the ticker. Hard one to type in. Perfect morning dump setup. Had some other first green day shorts that I'll get into that I kind of wanted to tease around with, but this was the morning dump setup that I was looking hard for, starting from yesterday, and was just patiently waiting. Got up early again today to see if anything would happen in the 7 a.m. time frame, Eastern Standard Time frame, but of course nothing happened. This one started pulling up. Glad I kind of was awake early so that I had all the systems and software in place ready to go as it started spiking at usually the kind of normal time that I get up. So this one is a Chinese car manufacturer. Chinese, you know, it's going to be manipulated. Float of 5.2 million. No reported short interest. They had news of, they signed a letter of intent with China Petrol Technology on the development of electric vehicle battery swap. Pretty decent news, EV news, but of course EV sector hasn't been hot for a while now. Looking at the daily, my two knocks with this one, and looking back at it, of course, is the lack of history on it for bag holders to be dumping in on top of this, and the float. And I think decent percentage rise from the previous close trading day. A very nice percentage peak from this move here on my first entry. And yeah, the second knock would have been the float. That is a pretty low float and choppy to try and be in with that low of a float. So it wasn't the most ideal, not the most A+, but the pattern was certainly there. This one here today, I did not realize it at the time, but this was both my second worst trade of the month and also my best dollar volume trade ever. My best dollar size trade ever. So $230 loss to this upside here, and a $270 gain at these absolutely horrific entries and exits on this second trade. And when I mentioned of this step in my career that I took today on this one, of course I got in. I know what I'm risking, and I know the parameters beforehand, and I know the entry signals, and I'm so prepared exactly what I'm looking for on these. And of course I should, again, another knock I could mention here is these wicks that really didn't want to crack VWAP as another sign of, oh, maybe you should be a little bit more hesitant, but I'm not. I want to take at least a starter position. Maybe I should have taken a little bit smaller of a starter position, but that's not my plan in these either of how they've been working out, dumping directly from that first initial VWAP crack. But anyway, got in with 400 shares, first position here, 665. Got immediately chopped back out to the upside and had to cut at that high a day. 725 was the exit on that one, so not I was kind of, I think I had an order ready for like 7.2, thinking, oh, this candle high was 7.18. I'll have enough room to get out at 7.2. No, you got to be well prepared in advance and willing to take a lot of slippage if strength is going to push through that high in order to just get out and not take any more serious losses. So obviously, $240 loss, second biggest loss of this year. I didn't know it at the time that it was the second biggest loss, but of course I see that big red number and a little bit of the emotions start to play in. I'm going, oh, geez, my head immediately starts to go to the equating that to, oh, well, that's like 3 other of these trades. I got to do this and this and this to get those profits back. But I shut those down, refocused. I knew I had more day trades available in my other accounts. Wasn't really focused on thinking that this would come back and offer another opportunity. But as we started to get to this point and start to roll over, this hard candle, a little bit teased out here that it was just, again, trying to crack VWAP, and it wasn't like the strongest rise of VWAP here that would suggest to me again that this would have fallen off as hard as it did. I certainly could have gotten in here and we could have retested again and broke those highs once again before it dropped off. But I was lucky enough to, watching it here at this point, seeing these little indecisive candles here, and just going, oh, I don't know if I should get an entry. What if it just quick rises, flashes back above that VWAP for how low of a float it is? It could just chop around. Is the pattern really going to work out again? And then I had my order in another day trade in my other account already set up in the order window, ready to go, ready to reserve those shares. And soon enough, as we started cracking that VWAP, I just lagging behind of being able to reserve another 400 shares, get that order in. Soon enough, we're down already to 7, and I filled at the whole round number of 7. Lucky enough that was the nail in the coffin for this pre-market and for the rest of the day, that the morning dump trade was on. And I knew after this point that we're selling off. Now I could kind of get back into that same mind frame of how I would trade these initially of, okay, crap, I got to get my profit limit order in to 6. I established myself first at 6.2 to say, okay, if this thing's really going to break off and fall, it's got 6.2 written all over it easy. That's so easy to come from where it's been. But then I'm realizing, God, I was kind of harboring those emotions of really wanting to just fill the loss that I just took. And I went, no, you got to trade this how it's meant to be traded. And I shifted it a little bit, maybe not as much as I should have, I just put another limit order in at 350 shares to 6.2 again. To 6.2, yeah, to down here. So yeah, 50 shares, like that has any meaning of what I was looking to play for the downside if it wanted to come further. But anyway, as we're coming down here, trending further and further, we're hovering around 6.3. Bid was like 6.29, 6.28. Time and sales was pretty indecisive. And I just quick snapped like, oh, I'm an idiot. I need to take the money when I can, not when I have to. 6.3 is the actual 10% from 7. And we're also beyond 7 from the entry I should have been, which I didn't realize at the time either. So I just canceled that order quick, got out at 6.3 for those 350 shares, locked in that profit, immediately made up for this loss. And I was just in a much cleaner and healthier frame of mind to say, okay, we actually did it. We actually did what it takes to be a professional trader in light of being able to be stopped out when you're wrong and being able to get back in when the entry signal is there again on the same ticker on the same intraday. Seeing this, talking to Chris about, I just pulled up randomly the Gratani recap video of CYDY, that big short. And it's funny, I'll talk about that with Zila here in a few minutes, but watching that video again, it was just so funny how he's talking about the upside of that move, how many times he got chopped out and how many other paper cuts he had to take before the final big grand finale that made him that 200K profit day, whatever that was. So in reality, you look at that and think, oh my gosh, 200K, wow, that's money in the bank, that's pretty awesome. But in reality, he didn't pull away that full size from that day. He was taking the paper cuts along the way all the time from getting in and out, and following the signs that told him he should get in. Maybe he was a little bit emotional. He goes over that in the video, but yeah, you see that big number for the perfect trade, and that's what you kind of visualize, seeing everybody else on Twitter too. Oh, nailed this perfect, awesome morning dump setup. But maybe most of the time you don't realize, and what most of these professional traders, of course, have to go through with how the market is evolving now too, is you're going to get shopped out even before the trade may end up happening. So we may get caught. It should have, I quote, should have started falling off from this point. That was the interesting. You could say, of course, in hindsight too, that these pullbacks above VWAP, even though they're red candles, the huge bottom wicks should say, okay, there was buying support here. This thing was still on the rise, and its flat VWAP wasn't that comforting either. But yeah, it could have gone immediately from there. The way it ended up today was the way it was always meant to be today, and it just so happened that there was other shorts piled in with me, and they got squeezed out with their risk levels at that same level that I had at. And I just quick dump back down because everybody of that mindset was already out. So yes, it's hugely excited that I didn't do it very well, as you can see by the entries and exits, and yeah, on the second trade, but excited that I'm able to take this step now of how I used to look at my longs, not necessarily my shorts, but anytime I was taking an actual position size, and I'm meaning like over $1,000, any of these types of trades, if I was wrong, if I had to cut it at my risk level, I would just immediately assume and kind of fall back into my turtle shell of, oh, okay, well, I was wrong. I'll just continue to watch it, of course, and chart it, log it down if it ends up doing what I think it's going to do, and say, oh, okay, that was the right entry signal for that one. But in reality, that's, even though I'm incorrect initially, it doesn't mean the trade is wrong. And of course, I get blinded with, oh, well, you have a cash account, or you only have 2-day trades, all this stuff, that blah blah blah. You can't really get in. That's like just any amount of friction that stops me from thinking that you can get back in, or that you should just wait. But this one was an awesome proof of that fact today, that the setups and the patterns are there. They may be evolving and changing a little bit, that we might have to adjust how much risk we're putting on, or how big a size we put on this first entry, or how much we're willing to add, or start looking to add more size, or take an actual position if and when it starts showing these same patterns again, even though it's kind of broken what we've globally defined as this morning dump pattern. But this one was just another great example, and exciting after the whole shebang and getting stupidly stopped out of. I just set a random arbitrary risk level at 6.5 for these last 50 shares, which was so stupid, and just, I wanted to take profits when they were there and not get too greedy, but of course I get perfectly stopped out in this red candle, and it just continues to dump the rest of the day. It was looking a little bit long-y, if that's a word, or a dip and rippy. I know Tim Bowen definitely was looking at this as a dip and rip opportunity, and it could have certainly squeezed back, tried to retest VWAP at one of these points, but this red candle here and the huge volume candle below, if you can see that on the video, was a huge indication of, oh, okay, this thing is dead. There is sellers coming into this thing, pushing it down, and that was the final nail in the coffin. That, yeah, maybe you could have taken a short position off of that candle alone, but I certainly wasn't going to waste a day trade on that setup. But yeah, I really should have still had shares in at that point anyway, risking just under my entry, which is what I was kind of telling myself after I took off that first share. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm following along with the same guidelines that I always do on this morning dump. And then somewhere in here, I just came to the thought process of, oh, well, I'll set it at 6.5. If it goes to 6.5, then it'll probably go back more. And I just want to take the money when it's there, and kind of get out of this tumultuous morning, what this was. But the pattern proved again, the level of the pattern proved again that you can still maintain that risk just below entry once you get to that point. I mean, even risk below a peak here today especially, but I should have certainly, with the 50 shares remaining, I should have been way more lenient on what I was willing to risk than just trying to get out at 650. But the big step and the big accolade for this one is going to be that being able to get in again after I've taken the pretty big size loss, which was a huge step for me that I haven't really ever done before, and I'm excited to continue to learn about them and do that. And I know in the future I may end up trying to do that another time, and it may get squeezed out again, and then another time that I try it for 3 times and I get squeezed out again. They're not all going to happen like this, that, oh, even if you fail one time, it'll happen the second time. It's not how it's going to be, but this is proof that just like the professionals, just like all the big names we see, you can't play with your emotion and you can't lose sight of what's actually happening. And this consolidation here, this hard VWAP crack, again, the perfect morning dump sign, and I had to get back in at that point. It was forcing my hand. I wasn't trying to revenge trade this. I was just playing the setup that I'd been charting and tracking for so long and so well. And that was awesome to see. I ended up like $6 in total profit after on this trade, but the learning experience was far more valuable than the $6 and being down $240 instead. The other first green day short, RCAT. Looking at this one yesterday as a first green day short, a little bit of overhead resistance, very nice standalone volume candle that was now weakening in this pre-market. VWAP just kind of fell off. Saw this pretty early and knew that if it was going to be choppy, especially with these halts it had yesterday, but it really didn't. Kind of double peaked here, if you want to call that, closed weak in the after hours. And again here in this pre-market, just really no volume and no follow through on what that move was. So that was tempting to me to see that maybe there'd be some dump off or some selling from anybody that was trying to backhold a crazy move, crazy squeeze higher. Anyway, started just pretty small, short size. My first, I think I started with 100 here. This was like 50, add another 50, knowing that I was not going to risk 606. I was going to say maybe 4-4. If it in the pre-market, if it went past that, then I was done with it and wanted to learn my lessons from it. I was either debating. I had 2 main first green day short setups that were going to be kind of the most ideal. RCAT wasn't the craziest ideal, but at the time I liked it because it kind of rejected and it was under VWAP at the time I was looking at. RCAT, by the way, 9.6 million float, no reported short interest. It's a Puerto Rican software company. They had news yesterday that they were acquiring the company Teal Drones, which I believe does some military work for the US, which is pretty cool, but not like exponentially awesome move that would actually shove this higher. So it was between RCAT and Appy. Appy. Same thing on Appy's sheets. APHI, I'll call it. AHPI. American Healthcare Medical Device Company, float of 3.4 million and reported short interest of 4%. So it was kind of a turnoff for me. The daily was awesome from yesterday that I had on the watches. Of course, this standalone candle, gapping down without an increase of volume. And at the time, I was looking at debating between RCAT and this one. The small float was a turnoff. The big distance it's already come from 11. That might be similar percentage-wise, 11 to like 9. That could be similar percentages. I'm not going to do that math. And I wasn't doing that math at the time, too, which shows you how little I put thought into differing between those 2 options. But it was above VWAP at the time I was seeing it, and it didn't have the greatest float, of course, so I'll just go with RCAT and see if either of those, if the first green day short, I haven't had one of these this whole month. My last one in June was a pretty profitable 12%, but I haven't been seeing any awesome of these kind of just gap up on one day and then just failing the next day. So wasn't really totally confident in trying to take up multiple day trades, blanketing the whole spectrum that I had on a watch list. But this one was the play today. A lot of other guys were trying to play this one in the chat, and I think some of the red names were saying, hey, this is a stupid ticker, it's extremely choppy, there's way better plays out there, which kind of was a good sign that as the volume's not coming in, the sellers are just going to come in, and back holders from here are going to sell because they realize the game is over and it's going to stop. This is not the next AMC, even though it has such an incredibly low float. But even in trying to get short pre-market here, you could have totally covered. I certainly would have covered my 10% even before market open. I don't know really what I would have done with this spike here. Maybe it would have played into some emotions, but I don't think I would have settled for taking less. Maybe I would have cut at just under my entry price, and then of course had to watch this fall even further down for this day. But pretty awesome to see this one. I think some other people actually bagged this long for this little short squeeze, but it wasn't that awesome either. 10% move, but kind of unpredictable and not really a great technical trade to go off of for how choppy it was in total. But that was the one. Didn't play. RCAT got stopped out and squeezed pretty hard. Glad I cut when I did and when I was able to, because this thing halted. I do not want to be in that halt as a short to the upside. But then of course pulls back, bounces around, consolidates at that pre-market level, and then just a little bit of an update today. So I was wrong on the RCAT choice. Shoulda, coulda, woulda been right on the AHPI choice. OXBR. Had this one on a watch list again from yesterday for this move it had in the after hours. They had news yesterday that they now have 9.9% ownership interest in another holdings company. They've got the base in the Cayman Islands. They got a float of 4.1 million, reported short interest of 4.1%. Initially, on first glance, looked at it as a short opportunity, and especially seeing this in the pre-market. I feel like I've seen a lot of these repeats that, okay, after hours, immediately they'll have this great news release right after the close, spike hard, pull back to VWAP, and then just continue to fade the rest of the day. And that's kind of what my first thesis was on initial first glance. Then looking at the chart, the daily chart, we're seeing now lots of one and dones on all these different daily candles here. Especially these big volume spikes. So kind of changed my tune with that 4 million float information as well of, okay, maybe this might be a long opportunity. Pulled it up again around this time frame after seeing it come back above VWAP and was going in and out of, oh, I should get long here. I think this thing could just squeeze hard the rest of the day. I should take a big size on this. But then I was like, no, that's not. We don't know the percentages on these types of profits or on these types of trades. There's no really way to tell if it's going to go hard. And of course, it goes immediately pure green right to 10%. Awesome opportunity there. Then I'm watching it and going, oh, I'm such an idiot and blah, 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 whatever. But then obviously kind of double top here from that after hours move yesterday. Consolidating a little bit. And then I start to tell myself, seeing these red candles and these red wicks, maybe it should be an opportunity to get short here. That could be a little signal. That could be, this move could have been all the shorts that were trying to get in it from the day before, or any big position that was looking to sell into this or cover into it. And of course, it just starts fading. And even in the market hours, continues to fade and feel like an idiot. No real thesis behind it, just thoughts that I was having, that kind of coincidence of, oh, maybe I should get long here. Oh, maybe I should get short here. Stupid, but that's part of trading. Ears. Morning dump setup. Tried to actually play it. I saw it, caught it pretty early around this point when it was starting to spike, and I tried to play a few shares long, just looking to see if it would go any further, and of course it did. That was a 10% opportunity if I was able to get out at like 3.9, but it started chopping around. I got like a 3.65 fill, and then it was just going here and then just chopping around. This candle got me out. I just got out at 3.65 for a net zero trade, which was stupid, but then of course started shooting higher. I remember this ticker as the eyes sympathy, the eyes ticker sympathy, back in, this is 2020, back in December. I believe that was, this play was the sympathy to eyes. But of course it's got this history of the one and done's, big single wick candles. That's not the one. So yeah, that's pretty much on this daily. And I also traded this one short from July. Ah, shoot, I don't have that chart. June 21st. Similar pattern here, same kind of news release. Today it had news of publication of data from preclinical studies with blah 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 blah. Ooh, it actually was COVID news too. I didn't realize that. But decent percentage move up. Of course, this one's got a float of 12 million. Reported short interest of 1%. They're based out of Bermuda. That shows you how manipulated it is. Once again. But going back to seeing this ticker pop up on the morning scanner, I was immediately kind of turned off because I remembered that trade from June, and I took a loss on it. But I remembered I took a loss on it, but I didn't remember that I took a loss on it because I was shorting it after it had already pulled back 10%. And I even wrote in that trade recap, I entered where I would have been covering initially with my first entry, where I should have been entering first, which I didn't remember at the time. So didn't really think of this as didn't really look for it to morning dump or pull back as hard as it did and provide the opportunities it did. But of course it did. Just like it did on that June 9th, but I was still just kind of reveling in the RCAT and the JZXN, whatever that ticker was. Just kind of going through that tumultuous morning. But the opportunity was there on this one. Spotted it. I was aware of it. And kind of a little interesting play there too of how I tried to play it to the upside. We can, even if these start to move in the market hours like we're seeing on the yesterday's play of the other ones that I've mentioned of that they will do these patterns and then kind of ramp up a little bit. We can even start to try and play these along quick for quick little spikes, sell when it seems like it's starting to turn, play it short for the downside, sell when we're making our 10%, maybe hold a few little over, but then play to the long side as well too. There's 3 different ways to try and play this type of volatility. So just an interesting one on ears again. CEI was a morning dump. That's not it. CEI. Morning dump setup. Wasn't really paying attention. Oh, it's a sub dollar too, so I couldn't even play it anyway. Well, I could, but it'd be huge fees through Trade Zero. So yeah, like the chart and the opportunity there proves that even sub dollars can do the same type of thing, but didn't even touch it because of the sub dollar. This is an American oil and gas play, 25 million float, short reported interest of 8%. They announced they had a $15 million investment from an institutional investor today. What's reason for news catalyst? Daily's pretty decent with the overhead resistance it has coming from these days. These volume one and dones are interesting as well too. Reporting to note how today matched up, especially with how big this candle was, matching this today with these other big volume candle days. Interesting to see that. ATOS. Let's go over Zila. Zila yesterday, awesome move. Ended up fading, kind of dying off yesterday, but then pulled back in this pre-market today, showing some strength today. I know some of the bigger guys were seeing these moves as opportunities to get short, risking this 545 high, looking for a first green day or first red day opportunity from this little parabolic move. Chris was getting short, got stopped out at the break of the whole round number of 5. Ended up working and fading the whole rest of the day. I think a couple other guys waited till market hours in order to start taking position size. That's just something I don't know how they are getting their fills. I'm not really watching it that closely to see what their actual entries and exits are, but it just seems like, of course, like everything, whether you're looking at social media, it seems like everybody else is nailing it, and they're somehow just scaling into these top wicks here for shorts and just raking it in and riding these puppies all the way down. But great setup on that one for a first red day short after this one had kind of exhausted itself with that volume candle from yesterday and was closing pretty weak in the close, after the close yesterday on that one. But this was so in talking to Chris about Zila too and how he got stopped out, and mentioning now again the CYDY video from Grittani. In that video with Grittani, he was pulling up those old charts from the parabolic moves that he learned from, and I forget the tickers now, like Fannie Mae back in 2011, 2008, of Another one that was like 2011, 2012. All of these tickers and all of these charts, like so pure and so clean. The dailies just looked awesome. No huge top wicks or bottom wicks. And then he shows CYDY again, and it's, you know, a little bit more wicky. And even as he's talking about all of the other times he got stopped out and played out for those little paper cuts, he got those would CYDY looked a little bit choppier than those ones he showed. And now we pull up charts today like Zila and DPLS for these parabolic moves, and it's just ludicrous. A red day here in the middle, gap ups, still big wicks and indecisions between for these parabolic moves. And it's just kind of becoming like this realization, like, oh my gosh, the market is just having to continually become choppier and choppier because everybody's aware of the same setups. Everybody knows first green day short now, second green day gap up play. Everybody's kind of aware of these same patterns that have been around forever. So now it's, in order to create more volatility and more opportunity, now they're having to stop out at what everybody else is risking and what everybody else is looking for and the side that everybody is on. And it's just becoming more apparent that the old way of trading, that these patterns of being able to recognize, are just kind of fading away, and now it's becoming almost even harder to make a living, in a sense of the old patterns that used to be so reliable. You've now got to widen your risk and watch that level 2 maybe even harder, just open your horizons up to taking more and more slippage on what used to be tried and true hard technical levels where you could establish yourself. Now the markets are continually changing and growing in a way to force more volatility, force more people to get out, to buy back in, buy back out. More trades like I had today of JZXN. Is that the ticker? Yeah. That they created more opportunity, more volatility by squeezing what was an obvious risk level of that high of day, and that's how you create markets. That's how you create opportunity. The same thing with AMC and GME. That is the stock market 101. So it's just, that was just funny to see in Gritani's video of showing up those old charts from years back, that now you rarely ever see anything similar to that. And kind of the same thing that happened with Zila today. That's just proof in the pudding. LCLP was an OTC mover. Still don't watch LC 1,000%, 1,800% mover today. Still don't watch these OTCs, pretty hard. This one, American-based company. News of they're entering the cryptocurrency market because they're acquiring a global blockchain platform, blah, blah, blah. So good crypto news today, and just continually ramped up the whole rest of the day. Pretty far from VWAP, and didn't close the greatest, so we could maybe see a little gap down on this one tomorrow. If so, I would look for it as a, no way I'm trading this. I can't even trade an OTC short, but try and play it for the downside, or if it wants to gap up, tries to go green after a gap down, play for a second day move there too. The daily on this one, Artivore was saying something on, look at this in the past, of how it's failed after big parabolic moves, but I really didn't get what he was saying on this one. But it was just making sure everybody was careful on it, especially in these afternoon trading hours, that we're not in 2020. Things just don't go berserk, especially like on this move here from 3.4 to 4.2. Trying to buy at that type of level is just ludicrous, and even buying anywhere in here is just kind of throwing a knife at your feet in a sense. But huge 1,000% mover in the OTC market. That's awesome to see. And then SGOC again. First green day play on this one. Daily on this one. Pretty parabolic move. Looks like it was going to be, or it was the first red day yesterday. And pretty much people getting early in again that this was going to be the down move in this pre-market. And then we started ramping. And this pre-market took out that pre-market high, took out the close price, got us fairly decently to the open yesterday. still $4 away. But showed a lot of strength coming into the market. I didn't look at the volume, growing volume with this type of move, and then perfect dip and rip into a halt here. I know Chris played this for a few shares at the 11 areas, sold in 15s, but the opportunity to the upside was huge on this first green day play today. Lots of shorts getting squeezed out to the upside, continuous, and it's, you know, 1 move, 2 move, 3 move. There's another halt here. After that halt, big indecision on this doji candle, a perfect doji of where it wanted to go, kind of triangled, broke to the upside. Could have been another entry signal here to get from 17 to 18, played anywhere around there. Crazy volatility on this one. I don't think it's done yet. It's under VWAP. You know, the aftermarket looks okay. Could gap down tomorrow. Could see just maybe dying off. Another thing I wanted to mention too is a little thing I wanted to look into or start tracking maybe was taking volume and dividing it by the number of trades and seeing each day on any of these parabolic movers, how is the average size per trade changing each and every single day? Does that have any weight? Does it increase on red days? Does it start to wean off as we get to the tops of these moves? Could be an interesting little tidbit or indicator to keep track of, so I'll keep an eye on it and start getting more data on it. But maybe could have played in a little bit today, I don't know. But again, SJOC, awesome opportunity, and kind of uneasy. I don't know if I've ever truly traded this or any listed that just halts so much with so much volatility, and I kind of tend to stray away from those with how manipulated they can be and how quickly they can move into a halt. But the opportunity is certainly there if you can be on the right side and ready well in advance of buying any of these dips. Perfect hold, round number of 11 hold on that one, to an awesome upside on that one today. So I think that's all I had. Let's see. Yep, $70 loss in total today after that RCAT loss, but coming back from being down like $300, it's pretty awesome. And especially that learning lesson, totally invaluable, and it makes me even more excited to continue doing this in the future, of building upon that and learning from that, trading without emotion and not holding on to, oh, I took a loss on this, it's over, I'm done. It's the entry signals are still there, then the trade can still be on. That's how everybody loses. That's the old adage of the only time you fail is when you quit. And when I take a loss and I completely give up and quit on the stock, then yeah, I failed it and I've taken the loss on that. But that doesn't mean that it's over, and it doesn't mean it has to be over. But that, again, on that flip side, it doesn't mean that I should try to revenge trade this and think, oh, here's a turn here, it's going to come here, and just get all crazy and emotional about it. I have to reel myself in, and I feel I did that very well today after taking what ended up being the second biggest loss of the year. I did well to say, I don't think this trade is over. I think it's going to continue to dump. It's a Chinese manipulated stock. Yes, it's a little low float. The daily doesn't look that awesome. It doesn't have that much history, but the opportunity was still there, and I got those losses back plus a little bit more. So good trading today. Great opportunity for the next one. We will catch you guys. Thanks for watching.